Welcome to St. Petersburg Together. I'm your host, Janice Ford, Economic Development Coordinator for the City of St. Petersburg's Business Assistance Center. St. Petersburg is rich in history, but sometimes history can be forgotten. The city's Planning and Economic Development Department is working with the community to prevent that, through the African American Heritage Project. Here to tell us about this project is Amy Angel and Kimberly Hinder, Historic Preservationist for the City of St. Petersburg. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, tell us the purpose of this project.
The purpose is really to identify the significant African American sites in the city, the significant people, the significant buildings, and really to document those and to tell the history and document the history for people to learn about.
Okay. And how did this project get started?
Well, Mayor Foster really believes that there has been a gap in the history of the African American population, and he put together a steering committee for us to work with so that we could help document it and tell the stories of this.
Okay. Now, what will be the outcome of this in this project?
We're looking at creating interpretive markers, approximately 20 of them. They are the initial phases are going to be along 22nd Street South and 9th Avenue South. The 22nd Street corridor is going to really focus on commerce and culture, change, and community. And the 9th Avenue corridor is going to focus on education, the institutions, and the churches, so that we can really give a broad history of the 22nd Street community, the neighborhood.
Okay. And so we're going to have some photos that's going to be up and showing what to expect along those corridors.
Right.
Okay. Now, have you discovered any interesting stories doing your research? Can you share some of those with us?
One of the interesting things we've been working on, I've been researching the Merriweather building, which is located at 951 22nd Street South. Mm-hmm. And it was built in 1925, and the research shows that it was built by African American contractors, as well as for an African American developer. And the contractors, Buggs and Childs, actually built 3 or 4 different buildings along the corridor. So it's really interesting to see the development of the corridor in the 1920s and how it really progressed, and also the other buildings that the contractors worked on. Mm-hmm. The developer we don't know a whole lot about, John Merriweather, except that he was African American and he lived in the gas plant area. Mm-hmm. He built this building along with another building, and these buildings really became, I think we have a picture of it, but these buildings really became the core of the African American community commerce-wise. There were a lot of African American businesses that got their start in these buildings. For example, the Merriweather building actually had the Blue Moon Cafe, as well as I think it was Maggie's Beauty Box and the 22nd Street Billiards, and all of those businesses were African American owned. Mm-hmm. So it's really tells the story of how during a time of segregation, these businesses couldn't operate elsewhere. So they formed to really service the African American community, but they were businesses that were owned by the African Americans as well.
Okay. Now, you said you don't know much about the contractor, who's Merriweather. Is that what's his name?
The original developer is John Merriweather.
Okay. So if we have folks out there listening, and if you know anything about John Merriweather, please contact Kimberly or Amy. And just for those purposes right now, Amy, why don't you give us your telephone number where you can be contacted?
Absolutely. It's 727-892-5470.
Kimberly?
892-5451.
Okay. So we are always looking for interesting history, African American history. So if you have that out there, please contact these 2 ladies, and they will do some research on it. Now, how has the community been involved?
We've had 5 public outreach meetings where the neighborhoods have really come, and people have come and brought their stories and brought their pictures and really given us a good idea of what are the significant properties in their neighborhoods.
I know that I've had John Wilson and I've had Gwen Rees on the show to talk about how the steering committee was formulated and how this all got started, which has been very interesting. And the community has shown a great deal of interest in those community outreach meetings. So please, if you're out there and you do have history and you want to contribute to this project, contact one of these ladies and they will do the research and work with you to get that history, which is so important. We want to preserve that. Now, what do you hope to see come out of this project in addition to the markers?
Well, in addition to the markers, we'd like to see a comprehensive and interactive website, possibly a brochure, and we'd also like to do a cell phone application with QR codes where people can walk up and get that information about the corridor right there on their cell phones.
Okay. Now, do you have any photos, and I'm not sure of all the photos that you all have submitted, of the design of the marker? Is that something that's still in process?
We have been working on the design of the marker, and we've sent over a photo of a mock-up of one which would show what it potentially would look like.
Okay. Now, what are some of the challenges that you're faced?
I think one of the biggest challenges is really finding that early history. A lot of people remember the 1950s and 60s history of the corridor, but trying to find the earlier history and document that. The St. Pete Times didn't have a newspaper page devoted to African Americans until 1939. So that earlier history, unfortunately, a lot of people have passed away that remember that time. So trying to document that is really one of the biggest challenges.
I think also finding photographs and any other sort of documents, original documents that we can include and use on the markers has been a challenge. You know, people have copies of copies,
Right.
but we have very few original photographs or other printed materials at this point.
Now, I understand that another challenge you may face coming up is placing those markers and getting permission from the actual property owners to put markers and what have you. What is going to be that process for possibly contacting those owners? You have anything in mind as far as that's concerned?
I believe that, we will be contacting them. We're hoping some of them show up at the Deuces Live meeting next week, and we can start that outreach aspect of it.
And I understand that there's been a mass mailing
Yes.
in order to contact those.
Yes,
those
we've sent notices about the upcoming meeting to all the property owners.
And for folks out there listening, how can they be of help? What are you looking for as far as folks who are maybe tuning into this show and they have some interest? How can people help you?
Bring us your pictures. Bring us any sort of photographs you have. If you have receipts, menus, invitations, anything from those eras that we could use to gain information and also use to make our markers more interesting.
Now, I know that I have personally been a part of this project, and it's been very educational for me. But when people bring in their photographs or what have you, I think it's very important that they have some type of caption as to what it is, when did it happen, a date or what have you on that, because a lot of times people take pictures and they don't put any information on the back of it, and sometimes it's hard for them to recollect, when was this taken, who is this person in this picture. So I think that that's very important, and I know that we have received quite a bit of information, newspaper articles and all of that. For folks out there listening, what is the process that you all have in place? Now, you're telling them to bring you their pictures and photographs and newspaper articles and things like this. What is the process in place for handling and managing and those things? Because people may be kind of apprehensive about bringing these things in.
Yes, well, we have a form that they would fill out that includes all of their contact information, and that would be attached to an envelope. And all of the documentation that they bring would be stored in that particular envelope. And we would then scan it and return it to them as soon as possible.
And the reason why we need the originals is for the markers, we have to scan it at a certain resolution.
Right.
So we really need the original documents, and we have to scan it at a certain resolution in order for it to be publishable.
Okay. Now, if someone wanted to recommend a building or a person or event or something like that for this project, what process is in place for that? How do they go about doing that?
We do have a nomination form. It's available on our website, or you can contact one of us. We have a nomination form where you can nominate any person, place, event. We ask, for some information about it and any documentation that you might have, and then we will present it to our steering committee.
Okay. Now, give us that website address.
It's www.stpete.org, and then if you look at the Historic Preservation webpage.
Now, I understand that it takes funding to have these panels built and installed and what have you. And what has been the process that you all have gone about? I understand there's been a grant. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
We are so excited. We've just found out last week that we ranked first out of 10 projects.
Wonderful.
Yes, for a Division of Historical Resources grant. So it looks like we will have funding. We've requested $50,000 for the construction and the installation of the markers, and it's subject to the approval of the Senate or the state legislature budget. But hopefully by next summer we will have some money to start production.
Wonderful.
Yes.
So that is a start. Is there a need for more funding?
Yes.
Always.
Always.
Okay, that's right.
We're hoping to start with the 22nd Street corridor and then 9th Avenue, and then after we're done with that, move on to some other areas of the city, like the gas plant area,
Methodist
Town. So we will definitely continue to need funding for markers to go up in those heritage trails.
Okay. Do you think that there will be other grants that may be able to accommodate this project that you all could apply for? Now, you ladies have done an awesome job. Congratulations to you, because without you guys, that grant wouldn't have been awarded, hopefully, and it wouldn't have been #1.
We are so excited.
That's great, great. So there may be other grant opportunities.
There may be.
There may be. The grant that we applied for is only open once a year. But there may be other grants, and we're working with the grant coordinator for the city to find other grants that might work.
Okay. Now, please elaborate a little bit more on the markers and the, how the trail, because I understand that this is going to be a trail. So elaborate a little bit more. Feel free to add as much information for our audience as possible.
Well, the markers are going to be a double-sided panel. On the back side will be some standard text that describes the general history of the African American community in St. Petersburg, and a map of the corridor with each stop located on it. On the front side of the panel, it will be the individualized history that pertains to that particular location. And by having the double-sided panel, you won't need any other information or brochures or a cell phone. You'll be able to move through the trail just by going from stop to stop.
Kimberly, you want to add something?
I think the front of the panels, we're really trying to focus on not only the history of the building in front of us, but also the history of the entire African American community. For example, the mock-up that we have is for in front of Jordan Elementary, but we also talk about Davis Elementary or Davis Academy. We also talk about the Manhattan Casino. We talk about some other things that are in the vicinity as well as a broader history to put everything in context and really try to relate to not only the neighborhood, but also any tourists that might be able to go along the corridor.
Now, are these going to be walking trails, or, I know that a lot of these historic sites are far apart. So will you be able to walk to some of them, or would you have to drive to others?
The ones along 22nd Street and 9th Avenue are walkable. It's the grand, with one tour, it's about 1.5 miles for both of them. You know, so those are definitely walkable. Some of the other tours that we're looking at probably will be driving tours.
Okay. So, because I know that there are probably going to be a lot of elderly people who are wanting to, once this is in place, they're going to want to go out and see this. So they will be able to have someone drive them, or them drive themselves, or they may have their medical issues where they can't do long walks and what have you. So they will be able to drive to and then get out and look at the markers.
Right.
Okay. So anything else that you guys want to add about this project? It's very exciting. I'm thrilled to be a part of that.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting, just the information that we're learning, the real in-depth stories that we're learning that we hope to document. I think it's very exciting.
Yes. We've met so many fabulous people and who have shared their personal stories with us. They've shared their personal pictures and photos, and we've learned so much, and it's just been a pleasure to work on.
Great. And I know that Dr. Phillips had taught oral history to some students this summer. How do you all see that working into the project as far as those students working with any elderly folks who may have this history stored in their head? And these kids, how would you assign something like that to the students?
Well, we're hoping to really get them together to document and create an oral history project. Maybe not quite part of this phase, but very soon, looking at really using them as the outreach to really record this information.
Okay. I know several years ago the Carter G. Woodson did some oral histories. Have you all been able to find any of that information that they did several years ago?
We do have some of it. A lot of it is on cassette, and we're having some trouble getting it transferred over to a CD, but we do have the information.
Okay. What is needed in order to transfer that over to a CD?
We're really trying to work on that with the TV station. So.
Oh, okay. So maybe we can see if our TV station could do something like that. I'm giving them a job. Okay, give us this information again as far as contact information, where people can go to see the nomination form.
You can go to stpete.org and you will look under the Historic Preservation Department, and there will be a link there for the African Heritage Project.
Okay, and if they want to contact you ladies?
I can be reached at 727-892-5451.
And I can be reached at 727-892-5470.
And we have several photos that we're posting for folks to look at. Can you tell us a little bit about what photos that they're going to be seeing?
Well, one is the mock-up of the marker. Another one is of the corridor. The photo we have is from the 1960s, but it's showing the 1925 buildings, including the Merriweather building that I was mentioning a few minutes ago. I think some of the other photos involve the Immaculate Conception School.
Yes, that was along 9th Avenue.
I understand that you all recently met with one of the nuns.
We did. We recently met with Sister Sue. And that was a fascinating, fascinating interview. She shared a lot of stories with us about the early days of the school.
Oh, great.
Yes, particularly some stories about the challenges that the community faced and with segregation, and also how much that school meant to the children that attended. There's a huge number of the students that came out of that school that have gone on to be very, very successful and give back to the community. So it really had a huge impact.
Great.
Yeah, there were some really interesting stories. We're still trying to document some of them, but about the sisters taking some of the students to restaurants, such as the Howard Johnsons, such as Wolfie's, to to eat, and how it was a real challenge taking the African American children in during segregation. But the sisters were very brave and not afraid of anything, and really stood up, for their students.
That's always been my picture of sisters in the Catholic Church.
Yes.
Yeah,
Very strong,
it's really
very tough.
Yes, it's really incredible to hear the stories from the time period.
Okay. Now, is that something that could be an oral history that could be recorded?
I
Yes.
think it'd be a great idea. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And if it's an oral history, how could one hear that? Is there going to be any kind of connection as to how folks could maybe listen to those things?
Well, hopefully when we have our interactive website up, we will be able to put those histories on the web, and people will be able to listen to them through the internet.
Okay. And again, give us that website address for other information that you have posted.
It's www.stpete.org, and it's the historic preservation page.
Okay. And thanks again for joining us. If you are interested in helping with the African American Heritage Project, the contact information is on the screen. I'm Janice Ford. Thanks for joining us on St. Pete Together. See you again next time. Thank you, ladies. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Thank you.